Thank you, Dr. Shaw. And now we have three panelists that are going to follow up on specific areas that have been covered in this lecture. So as the panelists come down, they'll take their seats at this table, and I'll introduce them and turn over to Dr. Wexler to administer it. But Dr. Shaw spoke very eloquently and passionately on how American innovation can transform lives around the world, and that is so important in meeting the global challenges. But before American innovation results in life-saving treatment, the next technological advancement or scientific discovery must first educate and train future innovators right here. America's future problem solvers must not have not only math and science skills to become scientists or engineers, but also critical thinking, language skills, multicultural understanding. Unfortunately, when it comes to our own homegrown talent, the United States is lagging behind. A report released this week by the Organization for Economic Cooperation found that many Americans, 24 million working adults, are finding it difficult to advance their careers or earn higher wages as a result of low literacy and math skills. President Obama warned once, quote, "The nation that out-educates us today is going to out-compete us tomorrow," close quote. And it appears that this warning is coming true. In 2008, the United States ranked #1 in competitiveness, but the World Economic Forum's 2012-2013 Global Economic Competitive Reports finds that our ranking has dropped to #7. That's a bad trend any place you go. The U.S. remains the world's innovation powerhouse, but continuing to decline. What can we as a nation do to nurture and educate the innovators of tomorrow? What policy changes? How to attract the best and brightest? These are the types of questions our panel will be taking a look at. So first, let me introduce our distinguished panelists and ask them to come down. Brian Krause is the Vice President of Education for the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He oversees the Chamber's Educational Foundation, where he is, fittingly for today's panel, responsible for education and workforce development. He oversees a statewide coalition of K-12 higher education and businesses dedicated to improving Missouri's STEM talent pipeline. And I suspect he'll talk about that. And he's worked with the Missouri Business Development Program and the Missouri Department of Higher Education with a focus on international initiatives, policy developments. He'll have some good insights on that. Jen Parker with Burns & McDonnell. We're very fortunate to have her today. Burns & Mac is one of Missouri's and our nation's top engineering, architecture, construction, environmental consulting services firm. The company plans, designs, permits, constructs, and manages projects not only in the U.S. but throughout the world. She's the recruitment manager at Burns & McDonnell, where she ensures the company has the talent it needs to get the job done. Whether it's getting an engineer to work on a project in India, Qatar, Thailand, or even closer at home, the headquarters in Kansas City. I think many students ought to be interested in that opportunity. She previously worked at Truman Medical Centers and Altel Corporation. She has great experience and expertise in linking talents and skills to the company needs. She knows what the private sector is looking for. She'll also be able to tell us what proactive steps private sector companies like Burns & McDonnell are taking to address the workforce challenge. Our final panelist is Jim Spain, a face familiar to the crowd. He's from the University of Missouri. He's been with the university since 1990, now serves as MU's Vice Provost for Undergraduate Studies and the Director of MU Student Services. Like a good professor, and Jim certainly is one, he's received the William T. Kemper Fellows Award, Missouri Governor's Award for Teaching Excellence in Higher Education, and wears many hats, including currently the interim provost for e-learning. He's an expert on dairy cattle nutrition, which he's presented on around the country and around the globe. As an expert researcher, he has passion for student retention. As a vice provost, he has looked at why students leave the university, what steps can be taken to keep students here. Clearly doing a good job. Missouri has a significantly higher freshman retention rate than the national average of 75%. Student retention is a critical component for ensuring Missouri and America is educating and training the workforce of future. And Jim's thoughts and experience will be important. Now, I will now turn it over to Dean Wexler. The panel is yours, and we have some time before the luncheon is served, but I know this is going to be well worth the time to hear these three distinguished panelists. Dr. Wexler?
Thank you, Senator Bond. I'm very excited to hear each of these presentations, and so I won't say very much except to welcome the panel and to encourage you to engage them after they've made their presentations. Great opportunity for, again, continued conversation. So without further ado, Brian Krause.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I really would like to just start off with a quick question of the group. Of students that are here today, how many of you chose STEM fields and are majoring in STEM fields? Okay, hold those hands up. Of those students, how many of those actually decide on a STEM field in high school? How many of those decide on a STEM field in middle school? How many decide in elementary school? Hands go down, okay. Which kind of goes to a point that when we talk about talent pipeline and the development of the talent pipeline, how do we do that? And it's really reaching down into those younger grades and developing that talent pipeline from pre-K on. And I'm really fortunate to be here with Jen because Burns and Mack actually started a program many years ago called Battle of the Brains. And it's trying to work on that problem, is how do you move down into the K through 5 realm and engage students in meaningful ways in STEM fields and make it fun and engaging and exciting so that we grow that talent pipeline. So one of the things that I'm challenged with and have but great opportunity to engage is the Missouri Math and Science Coalition, which is a connector across the state for K-12 higher education and entrepreneurship and private sector. One of the aspects that we face with education and talent pipeline is the misalignment of resources and the miscommunication that goes on. K-12 speaks a different language than higher education. Industry speaks a different language than both of those. So how do we connect the dots? And that's one of the things that the Missouri Math and Science Coalition is engaged to do, and really looking at that talent pipeline from a global perspective of how can we best align resources to improve the state of Missouri and the outputs that we have. We're very fortunate enough with the Missouri Math and Science Coalition that the Commissioner of Elementary and Secondary Education is on the executive committee, Commissioner of Higher Education is on the executive committee, and we just recently brought in the interim director of Department of Economic Development. In addition to that, we have companies from Boeing to AT&T to MasterCard across the Missouri private industry spectrum that are a part of the coalition. And so what I hope to get out of today's panel and to deliver is really how we can improve the state of STEM in Missouri. And so with that, I thank you for being here.
As mentioned, I'm Jen Parker. I'm a recruitment manager at Burns & Mack, and I wanted just to spend a little bit of time going over what some of our initiatives are with the STEM processes that we're trying to implement in the high schools and the junior highs and all the way down to the elementary schools. Right now we have one dedicated person in HR. That's her entire job. She spends every single day meeting with high schools and junior highs and teachers and also the community to really get kids engaged into being excited about some part of science or technology or engineering or math. You know, we're an engineering firm and we'd love to have everyone be engineers, but obviously that's not going to happen. So certainly any way that we can get kids excited early especially women, excited early about going into a potential field in that area. There's so many benefits across, not only in the United States, but overseas, as we have a lot of global presence over there too. As Brian talked about, we have a really neat competition currently in place right now called Battle of the Brains, and this is where a number of different elementary schools and high schools are competing against each other to put their ideas into a plan where Burns and Mack would then develop and design and create a project over at Union Station in Kansas City for people to go to learn more about science or engineering or whatever that particular project, whatever wins. So right now is the voting process, and next week is when the decision will be announced. But it is a really exciting time, and it gets kids engaged very early to think about school being fun, think about science and engineering being a fun thing. So that's a really great initiative that we have going on, but not only with that particular program that we've done twice now, but training the teachers to help them understand when they are implementing different processes within the schools that they have. They are using new software that we're using at our company, so things like Revit and the CAD systems. A lot of time the teachers have a very high-level overview understanding of those programs, and our engineers are actually going and meeting with these teachers and teaching them how to use that so they can then teach the students in their classes. So a lot of different things that we're trying to do in the community to help people get excited about being in the engineering world.
Thank you.
Where to start? We could start on the American innovation side and talk about STEM, where we do have a very active effort, in part through some innovative ways that we approach faculty appointments. We've got faculty now who are science education jointly appointed in science departments. So we have a physics faculty whose joint appointment between physics and science education. And she's part of a grant that's allowing high school educators to reinvent physics education. Instead of taking physics first or last, take physics first to change the flow of science education and perhaps do a better job of retaining students in science as they go through the curriculum. Our math educators and looking at how do we do a better job starting as early as third grade math, which seems to be a key point as to whether students fear math or enjoy math, which is a key sort of decision point of whether I'm going to be a scientist or I'm not going to be a scientist. Even on our own campus, we've had a couple of national grants focused on how do we help retain more students that start in STEM, they stay in STEM, and they finish in STEM. More broadly, we're also in a state that has valued, and the namesake of this lectureship when he was Governor Bond established this thing called Parents as Teachers, which reached even further back to try and help better prepare young people so that when they got even to kindergarten, they were really prepared to advance from an education standpoint. And for us, it's how do we do that across that continuum in partnership both with K-12 but also with the industry partners that hire our graduates to make sure that they're prepared. From an international perspective, that was the point. How do we prepare global innovation? How do we prepare our students to participate in global innovation? Our entrepreneurship program here at Mizzou is a minor not in the College of Business, but in the College of Business and the College of Engineering and the College of Agriculture and the School of Journalism and our College of Human and Environmental Scientists, because we recognize that true entrepreneurship is multidisciplinary. I think one of our challenges is to how do we get students this real world experience in addressing these challenges. You know, as I heard our keynote speaker, I'm thinking, how can we put our students into those environments as students so that they do develop culturally relevant solutions to problems, and that when they get back here and they complete their degree and their curriculum, that they're taking those things that they're learning, but they're applying them to these problems that they know about, but through the appropriate experience will understand. And there's a great difference, and this is the problem, but understanding the context of that problem, right? And so I think there's some exciting things that we're doing here at MU that addresses this concern about solid K-12 education. I hope that, and the fact that there's a particular company represented on the panel that hires a lot of students from MU, that we're successful in that arena. But then how do we better address a more global challenge that our keynote speaker brought to us today?
So I'd like to open it up for questions. I'm going to take the prerogative of moderator, though, to sort of seed the discussion a little bit. Both Senator Bond and Administrator Shaw's points seem to be that not only is the world changing, but is growing more and more competitive, and so that our competition is not simply other communities in Missouri or other states in the United States, but across the world. And so how do we prepare our graduates, our current workforce and the workforce to come to operate in a world which is so very different from the one in which where America simply dominated in so many ways. And so I'd ask the panel to address perhaps that question.
Well, I'll take a stab at that, and I think we all realize the value of global education and what that means for tomorrow's citizenry. And what happens in Mexico, Missouri affects what happens in Mexico City, and we've heard that time and time again, but it's true. Recently, we had the tsunamis and different types of severe weather that affect regions across the globe, but we can engage that. We can also learn from that, and that's an opportunity for our students in the K-12 realm to do project-based learning, where they figure out what happened with the tsunami, and they divide up the class into different groups. And so one group can work on the relief effort. How do you get supplies? How do you get food? How do you get water to those affected areas? Another group can work on the science behind the storm, looking at the data, the research that is in tracking those storms and seeing how they emerge and dissipate, and then the destructive forces that they bring on structure. So now you have engineering components that can come into place. Then you can take other students to the side and figure out how do you do the philanthropy and building those public-private partnerships to get resources to those folks, just like we had heard about financial contributions. That's project-based learning, and that's a real-time experience that our students in K-12 don't engage enough in. The other aspect is engaging them in relevance and rigorous programming. One of the things that's recently emerged is the Common Core State Standards and the Next Gen Science Standards. There's been a lot of recent dialogue about those standards and what they mean for education, but the reality is they mean let's raise the bar for our students, because it's okay to raise the bar, as long as we give them the tools and equip them to reach that bar, to jump over that bar. So I think those are some key things that we could do right now that will help.
Thanks.
On the business side, and in terms of talking a little bit about how we're competing in a global market, it's something that we're getting back into. We used to do a lot of work overseas in over 60 different countries, and we scaled back for a while and kind of focused on the United States, and now we're getting back out there again into the global areas. This past year, we acquired a company over in India, so it's Burns & McDonnell India. We did that strategically because we do want to compete in the global market, and in order to do that, you have to be able to know the business that you're in. So that's been one exciting challenge for us. I spent a month over there learning and kind of being part of the transition team to get them just really integrated in with how Burns & Mac works, but also talking to individuals who are younger, straight out of school. They're wanting those global opportunities. They're wanting the experience to go overseas and experience, whatever it may be in their careers. And I'm excited that Burns and Mac now has those, potential opportunities, not only in India, but we're moving into other areas all around the globe to really kind of open that up.
Excellent. MU is one of fewer than 50 universities in the country that sends more than 1,000 students abroad in a study abroad program every year. And that's kind of a hidden secret. We all know about homecoming. I mean, even our speaker knew about our homecoming, but we probably don't appreciate the things that we do from an international perspective. We have more international students on our campus than any other campus in the state, and the state of Missouri ranks 11th in the country for the number of international students in higher education across all of the public universities in the state. I think that is a very important strategic opportunity for our state and our institutions as our resident students interact with students from around the globe. Our service learning program has initiated a very intentional international service learning component where we are placing students now in Ghana, where they're working on HIV/AIDS projects, and they're working in orphanage and low-income school systems, gaining real-world experience that they're bringing back to campus that really changes the dynamics. Those are also students that are more apt to be interested in the international employment opportunities that the multinational global companies need. You're not going to deploy a student in their first job internationally if they've never gone abroad and been abroad in a very significant way. But we also need to prepare students for that global interaction. And another hidden story on our campus is our multicultural certificate program. And within a year, we're going to have more than 1,000 students that have completed the multicultural certificate program on our campus. It will be the largest certificate program of all of the undergraduate certificate programs we have. And that's important even for our domestic students who are working, again, across a more and more diverse population with a more and more diverse workforce. So we're excited about the things that we're doing, looking for partnerships so that we can expand those things and go, and to your point, make them even more and more relevant so that our graduates are even better prepared for the real things that they're going to face.
And that's key.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you. There was a question. There was a questioner back here, and we'll let her go first.
Yes, thank you. And I wanted just to tell you that you're really doing very, very important work with this, thinking about how to get science into the lives of elementary school kids and up. I have a 6-year-old, and so that's constantly on my mind. We do a lot of it on the side, and in part because I don't see enough of this engagement in the public schools. And so, and I appreciate the international dimension that Dr. Wexler opened up in his first question. And 2 days ago, The Guardian featured an article, an editorial that said the dumbest idea America ever had was to introduce multiple choice into the testing across all subject matters. And the idea behind the article was that students just generally don't go into depth with the substance. They don't engage in the substance. They stay at the surface of things. They know they have options, right? They know that by chance they could be getting the answer right. And I wonder to what extent you see a relationship between the way we test for things generally, right, and how that actually gets students to care about the substance and to engage with the substance, right? And so maybe you want to talk about it more generally or specifically for the sciences. I leave that up to you, but I thought that it was an interesting article, maybe a little bit overstated. It may not be the dumbest idea, but
There may be some competition. Jim, would you like to tackle something like that first?
Thank you for pinning that one down to this end. That's very kind of you, Chair of the panel. That's a really important question, actually, and it's one that not just in higher ed, but across all of education. How do we assess learning in real and meaningful ways? And how do we do it in a way that does get to the depth of critical thinking and analytical skills? And how do we try to work away from this notion of we're just going to stick a qualitometer in it and measure the quality in a very, very simple way? And also recognize that this progress that students make is not necessarily always linear. That there is variation and movement up and down, and maybe even perhaps that evaluation needs to dictate how students move through our educational system instead of a chronological. Maybe it should be about learning outcomes and ability to advance. Those are very, very challenging conversations for us to have, I think, because we are so bound by the historical way that we have done things. In the last year, Princeton University has pulled together a panel of their faculty to look at how do you grade, which is in essence how do you grade, how do you assess, how do you evaluate student learning? And how do we do it in a way that's both effective but also efficient? Because that's the other challenge. And I know that I've got faculty here in the room that don't necessarily want to go one way or the other, but recognize that there's probably a best balance. Writing intensive, for example, on our campus is one of those attempts to make sure that we've got an assessment process in place that really challenges students to think and organize and communicate their thoughts. That goes just beyond a multiple choice question. There'll be some in the room that say, but I can build a multiple choice question that takes chance out of it because the answers that I put as choices are going to determine for me where they're at on understanding the question that I've asked. So it's a very important issue. That's one for all of education, K-12, higher ed, and unless we really collectively gather around it and talk about it very, very seriously, we're going to be stuck with frustrations.
Kind of going back to her point real quick, what I liked when you said that you spend time with your child and teaching them because you're not necessarily seeing it in the school system. And what we've seen is that kids who do get excited about learning and feel like they have potential down the road is because of an involved parent or because of a teacher. And that's why I think we're spending so much time meeting with the science and math teachers in these schools to say, you really need to be that person in that kid's life to help them know that there is a lot of opportunity out there for their skills if they're good in any of those areas. Because sometimes people don't have the parents or the parents are too busy with working to support their family to spend with the kids and be able to see that promise in them or be able to show them that engineering and math and science and all these other things are fun to do.
Mm-hmm. Great. Last question maybe from the back. Elizabeth?
I wonder about your framing the question in terms of being STEM majors and the need for STEM majors. I first heard this from an engineering faculty member here on campus and then saw an article about this. I think it was in the New York Times within the last week or so, saying that it's a lie that we need more, that there are not enough STEM majors and graduates in STEM disciplines, that we have more than enough, we have a glut, and that the reason we keep pushing this as needing more STEM majors is because businesses want to get more green cards for immigrant scientists and engineers that they can pay lower wages, and that universities are complicit. And I think their argument was that we can thereby get, if we generate more STEM majors, then we can get more postdocs who will teach less expensively than full professors. So I don't know the truth of that, but I had heard from this engineering faculty like a year ago that there was this dirty little secret. And it seems like, A, what does the data really show? And I mean, you may not know that, but B, should we be marketing it more in terms of math and science being important to no matter what you do, and those skills being important no matter what you do, rather than insisting that you have to be a STEM major in order to be of value, which kind of is the message, it seems, in a lot of environments.
So let me take a stab at that real quick, because I'd like to point out there's a recent article in the Chronicle that alluded to that as well. It's a crisis or the myth of what STEM, the demand is, and it's perpetuated by business and business associations like the Missouri Chamber and others. But the reality is it's true. I was just over in Kansas City at a convening of higher education experts to talk about the new model and the new shift in how we impart learning and how do we compress the model from higher education and high school together, as well as imparting work. And one of the things that came out was there was a gentleman there that was co-founder of Cerner, which is one of the larger health care software systems builders in the country and really in the world. And since 2010 to 2013, they've hired over 8,000 workers, STEM workers mostly. And so that's going on the west coast of Missouri. On the east coast, we have Boeing, who has fluctuation because of sequestration and everything, but they have 22% of their workforce that could age out today. 55% of their workforce, or 25% of their workforce could age out in 5 years. And these are on their commercial fleet, engineers and machinists. So the reality is in Missouri, there is a crisis. And so when we look at, on a global scale, and we look at 10 years out, 20 years out, where the STEM pipeline needs to be, we have to do the work today. And I think that's one of the aspects. The other aspect that you kind of pointed out was about adults and their skill sets. The OECD report that came out mentioned that for numeracy, we have about 8% of our population is operating at the highest tier levels of 4 and 5. The remainder of that are operating below, significantly below, in the tiers of 1 and 2. In comparison to Japan and Finland, their top percent is about 19. So a very big difference in what the adult population is doing with math and science. And the other aspect is when you see your average workers in either a factory or in an airport or in even Starbucks or what have you, the tools that they're utilizing are all technology. They're utilizing iPads to make transactions. They're utilizing robotics to move goods or move different types of materials across the factory floor. It's those high-tech skills that we need more of, and that's the coming future that we see, is that people will be utilizing technology in ways that we can't even envision now. But if they don't have those basic fundamental science and mathematical skills, they're not going to be able to engage it properly.
Well said.
Well, I think that we're at the end of our time, if I'm not mistaken, and ready to move to the lunch event, give us an opportunity for further conversation among ourselves and with each other, and look forward to engaging with you and with the panel. Thank you, Senator Bond, for sponsoring this event.
Thank you very much for all your help in believe this. And thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good pleasure. Pleasure to be here.